We know you're capable of amazing things. We know there are skills that you take for granted that can literally change the world. And we want to help you to use these more in your career and in your day-to-day life. So this episode is dedicated to showing you how to unearth these marketable and valuable transferable skills that you possess, so you can showcase them to employers, recruiters, colleagues, and yourself. And with lots of actionable tips for managers and coaches, we're going to help you to get your best out of your talent too.
You'll spend 80,000 hours at work. You're here because you want those hours to count. Hi, I'm Zoe Schofield.
And I'm Erica Sosner. A warm welcome to the Career Equation podcast. On this podcast, we take time out from our award-winning careers consultancy to share a game-changing formula to help you solve the sum of your life.
Each week, we and our guests use the career equation to explore their story so far and help them unlock the secrets of a fulfilling career.
So this episode is really all about skills, how to reflect on the skills that you possess, what you want to grow in 2025, and how to do this by conducting your 2025 transferable skills audit.
Thank you, Erica. Yeah, and we're going to be taking some time to define what a transferable skill is. We'll give you some examples from previous episodes of the pod. And we'll also discuss why they often get overlooked and how to avoid doing yourself down when it comes to all the skills that you bring. We'll also show you how to harvest your transferable skills so you're in a really strong position to apply for roles requiring them. And we'll ask how the career equation tools can help you amplify and use some of your transferable skills so you spend more time in your zone of career genius, if you like. And lastly, we'll help you set a goal or a new threshold for enhancing your transferable skills and becoming more happy and more employable. So I guess the first question really is to be thinking about, so what is a transferable skill? Well, simply put, it's a skill that can really travel with you. It's not a specific one to a particular type of role. And those ones are more what we call hard skills, really, the ones that are specific technical know-how, like making an incision if you're a surgeon or using a particular piece of technical software. They tend to have more narrow uses, whereas a transferable skill is something that can be adapted and used in so many different roles. So when we think of those transferable skills, we're thinking about things like anything from managing people, money, resources, time, perhaps organizing activities or project managing, keeping information really orderly and together, communicating, perhaps that's verbally or written, thinking creatively, or strategically being really forward thinking or being fast on your feet. And all those sorts of things go into those transferable skills. The list really does go on and on. So Erica, give us a kind of feel from your perspective about why transferable skills are so important.
I feel like the 21st century world of work is all about adaptability and agility. And it's about really being able to know where your skill set lies and apply it to a variety of different roles, different contexts, different products, different industries in order to create value. So the more that we can really pinpoint what are the skills that we possess, that we love using and add huge value using, the more employable we are, the more opportunities we have, and the greater agility we have to navigate an ever-changing, volatile world of work where roles are becoming obsolete, where new opportunities are arising, and staying ahead of the game by creating value using those skills. And of course, specialist skills have their place, and we're in no way saying do not develop expertise in a specialist hard skill. I have had lots of life-saving surgery. I do not want a surgeon who does not know how to operate safely with experience and expertise, okay? But what we are saying is that taking time to capitalize on understanding what your skills are that are transferable can really pay off. It can really open up your options and build your confidence and capability. Now, as an employer or a mentor, you want to be able to understand the whole person that's in front of you and the innate abilities that they possess. And knowing what these are can help you and them in so many ways. First of all, you're going to boost their self-esteem, their sense of self, you're going to get loads more out of them in terms of productivity and capacity by allocating the right opportunities and the right tasks to their key transferable skills. You're also going to be able to change your role design to add in the capabilities you didn't know that they had or that they wanted to do more of. And in that way, you're going to boost productivity, performance, and even retention, growth, and satisfaction. And look, the wrong role with the wrong activities that don't align with somebody's skill set can be a massively damaging experience. It can massively damage their performance. It can have huge issues for business continuity, and it can really harm them, their mental health, and their well-being. For example, you do not want to put me on anything involving detail, Excel spreadsheets, finishing, completing. I'm terrible. I really, really am terrible at those. And I'm very reliant on people to whom those things come naturally. But I'm brilliant at thinking on my feet, responding well in a crisis, seeing opportunities, innovating, thinking about the big picture. So the more that you can cater to my transferable skill set, the more you know about that, the more you can get out of me, the much more bang from your buck you're going to get. And that's going to be a win-win on both sides, because everyone feels engaged when they are spending lots of their work time doing what they do best. That's what engagement data tells us over and over again. And lastly, the future of careers is really customized. So more and more, we're going to be making job titles obsolete, but actually designing jobs a lot more in a collaborative way to fit the needs of the business and the needs of the individual. So the more that you can extract insight about understanding who you've got in front of you and what their transferable skills are, the more valuable you become as a people leader, a talent manager, a coach, and of course, as an individual, as your own, making your own contributions. I've heavily loaded up front what the benefits can be, because we're going to now go into a whole bunch of ways to help you to get under the skin of your own transferable skills and capitalizing on those of others. But taking time out to do any kind of reflection these days sometimes feels impossible. So, Zoe, give me the what's in it for me for the person listening today.
I mean, I think what I would say in terms of why it's so important to take a little bit of time out to think about your transferable skills, it is a really important step in the whole career planning process. And if we don't take some time out to think about the skills, the talents, the strengths that we have, the ones that we really enjoy using and that maybe we want to develop further, then we do risk a few things. What I would say firstly is that we risk feeling overwhelmed by the sheer volume of opportunities, of roles, job descriptions, job titles, and really not knowing where to start. But we can also find ourselves, if we're not careful, heading in a direction or landing in a role that really doesn't play to our strengths and skills, ones that we want to be absorbed in our day-to-day work. And also we can find it difficult to articulate our strengths and really sell ourselves and what sets us apart from others. But when we do get clear on what our strengths and skills and our talents are, then we can focus on roles and opportunities that we can align with them and give us the best opportunity to use them. And alongside that, it's brilliant because it boosts our confidence. It reminds us of what we're really great at, how we can use those strengths and our uniqueness, and how that helps when it comes to networking and interviews. So that's really good for the confidence boosting. But it also will help increase our job satisfaction and performance, because when we're playing to our strengths and skills, we get to explore when our next career moves comes along, thinking about the career equation. It really helps us align with the equation where we get to play to those strengths. We're more likely then to feel job satisfaction and fulfillment. And also we get to continue our skill development, understanding where we want to develop in terms of our skills and strengths, where we might want to add perhaps complementing skills, which in turn help us develop ready for those future roles and opportunities. So there's bags of reasons why taking a little bit of time to think about what my transferable skills are will really help us in so many ways in that career planning process.
And wherever you are, whether you're thinking about a switch and perhaps thinking, do I have enough of the skills that are necessary to make that migration? Or whether you're at the other end of, I want to stay in it. Either way, knowing what your skill sets are, being able to talk about them eloquently and confidently, to seize the opportunity to develop and deepen them more is going to serve you. Let's start by giving you some examples, perhaps, of transferable skills from the previous podcast. So just recently, I think it was on the 10th of Feb, we had Paul Alborough, who took his skills from special needs teacher to Victorian steampunk performance rapper about as unlateral a move as you could possibly make. But one of the things that I loved about that interview with Paul was the range of skill sets that he'd picked up along the way whilst getting fired from many different types of jobs in his journey. But everything from marketing skills, communication, organization, project management, innovation, creativity, he took something or discovered something about his skill set and developing his skill set in every role that he was in. And I think that's a really good example of, if you feel like your path has been a bit disjointed, you've done a lot of different things, being able to see, what did I extract and discover about myself that gives me actually a sense of coherence about what the skills were that I was consistently using across the board, can be really, really valuable. I think one of my favorite skills from listening to him was just this ability to connect and relate and create community with people. And certainly as a teacher, as a customer service advisor, he's picked up over and over again all these different nuances about how to build relationship. Tell me about one of yours, Zoe, and what comes to mind around transferable skills.
My episode that reminds me when I think about transferable skills is the episode I did with Paul Mullins, who went from a 35-year career with HSBC into working as a consultant in fintech startups. I think what was really good about Paul's discussion is how he was really honest about the frightening kind of period of, oh my gosh, I've been with the same organization for so long, and how do I take any of that stuff and move it to somewhere completely new? But what he recognized is, when he did lots of reflection and planning around what he was going to do next, is actually there are loads of transferable skills that I can really draw on and apply to conversations with new people in these fintech startups. And what I think he recognized is his ability to really listen to the story of others and the why. And that really helps with fintechs about why are they starting up? What is their mission? What is it they're trying to achieve? And through those sort of listening skills and being able to build trust and really collaborate, he was generating such good rapport with people. And he noticed that that's no different than what I was doing with HSBC in different communities, different customers, different departments. It's just applying them in a different place. So it really stands to mind, because it was quite a frightening period, I think, when you think about leaving something, your comfort blanket, if you like, of that you've been with for so many years, and starting somewhere new. So that was really good pickup from Paul.
I was thinking about Heather Eckhart, who runs and also improv. Her experiences with the transferability of skill sets around parenting, efficiencies, project management, thinking on your feet, and how she's transferred that into setting up her own business. But also just fundamentally the skills of improv, of listening, saying yes, being collaborative, finding a way through, that these are fantastic entrepreneurial skills, and you see them being integrated into her approach to setting up a physical building, setting up programs of work, explaining what she can do, creating safety. So it's really interesting to see how these things can transfer, not just even from job to job, but actually from areas and fields of your life to other fields too.
Annalise episode comes to mind for me, who went from a kind of corporate environment into moving to France and is buying a beautiful chateau, renovating it and establishing a hospitality business in terms of people coming to stay at their beautiful premises in France. So yeah, Annalise really did reflect on this ability to communicate with her new clients that were coming to stay, about the local community, and solving sort of tricky problems that they had in terms of finding builders and developing marketing, and really deciding between her and her husband, what are you good at? What am I good at? And let's play to our individual strengths, but work together as a team. And all of that came from her corporate background, actually, in terms of trusting teams, trusting who's the specialist, who do we use. It was such a change in terms of what she applied in her new life in France. but recognizing that she brought all of that, she transferred all of those skills and brought them with her into that new environment.
So look, if transferable skills are this important, if we can clearly see the value of them traveling with you, as Zoe said, why do we neglect them? Why do we overlook them? Why do you think that they are considered a bit second fiddle sometimes to specialist and technical skills?
I guess if we take it first from an individual's perspective, from our own perspectives, then there's this sort of feeling sometimes that there's the cult of the specialist, that only technical skills are going to be valued. I've got to know the ins and outs of AI, and I've got to be up with all the apps and the latest social media platforms and this sort of specialist stuff. So it's easy to forget about those sort of soft skills. And therefore, we think that soft skills aren't valued, making the assumptions that those hard skills, those specific qualifications are seen as more valuable. So I think also they're overlooked because we're using them everywhere, both inside and outside of work. So we then disregard them as they're not important or special enough. But that's really helps us unlock when we're thinking about our transferable skills. And we'll talk about this a little bit more later. Also that we can undersell them because we're really natural at them. So I might say, well, when we go on holiday as a family, I'm the one who does the research about where we're going to stay. And it comes naturally to me. I love it. I really like doing research and finding somewhere special. And I might do that, apply that research in my personal life, but also that's really important in the work that I do professionally as well. But it's easy to overlook it because it comes naturally to me. So I probably would undersell it in that respect. So that kind of, it's nothing special. It comes so naturally. Don't we all do it? Isn't that something that we all do? So those are some of the things that can be a big mistake, I think, when it comes to overlooking our transferable skills.
Over and over again, as career coaches, we find that the greatest joy comes from people working in areas that come naturally to them. And yet that natural talent and aptitude isn't something that everybody shares, and that they will very often assume that everybody else can do it because it comes naturally to them. So whether it's natural sales ability, the ability to kind of scan an environment and see where the problems or the opportunities are, whether it's making people feel at home, whether it's quickly being able to diagnose a malfunction within a process, the easier it is for somebody to do that, the more likely they are to assume that everybody else can do that too. And that is really ironic because actually that's often their sweet spot. And of course, from a manager or mentor perspective, there may be a few reasons also why we might overlook transferable skills. For example, quite often we work in very technical environments. So if you come from a profession with a lot of hard skills in it, whether it's chartered surveying or law or technology or engineering, there can be a tendency to really focus your attention on qualifications that relate to that and to technological capability that relate to that. And while that's completely understandable and grounded in being able to be a good actuary or a good surveyor or to make a sensible risk assessment or to design a safe piece of tech, it's not all of the story. Everything is not going to be guaranteed by focusing exclusively on hard skills. And very often we've seen organizations struggle and suffer around performance management, safety, delivery, and customer experience because it's hard skills to the exclusion of all else. I think also the more senior you become, the more transferable skills, it becomes evident that you need them. So if you are in a technical environment, to some extent, it can be easier to ignore earlier on. If you are an individual contributor and you're executing well using your hard skill set. But it's when you start to not be able to do what it is that you want to do without the collaboration, engagement, influence, buy-in, capability of others, then it starts to be clear that things like communication, project management, time management, relationship management, all those kind of client skill sets, soft skill sets become particularly critical. And also it depends on your culture. You know, in your culture, people will get measured and recognized according to a particular set of criteria, and what gets measured gets done. It's how PPI turned into such a scandal around the insurance, because people were just being measured on how many deals they did, not on whether or not it was appropriate to sell that particular insurance to that particular client. I worked with an insurance firm some years ago, reinsurance firm, where we were really recognizing in the performance management structure that it wasn't just what you did, but how you did it. because some of how you did it, if you didn't do it right, was illegal, would get you shut down, you know? So really focusing in on what does your culture value? How does it recognize that? And is the how as important as the what? So a culture and a values system in which it really matters how you approach others, how you create inclusivity, how you create an environment that people want to be part of. And I guess the last thing is that perhaps some of these things are dismissed because they're just considered like the basics of politeness, professionalism, effectiveness, manners, whether it's being on time, having an organized and thoughtful agenda for a meeting, being able to listen and ask the right questions without interrupting in an appropriate way. Like perhaps we've all just decided that those are things that people should have inherently picked up and already be good at, and that therefore we don't value them as much. But I think if you look at exemplary leaders and the ways in which they drive and facilitate change and performance, they do it through these softer transferable skills, not just their technical credibility.
And I think when we now move that kind of thought process on a little bit about what's okay, you've sold it to me in terms of why this is such an important part of the career planning process, but how do I start then to identify some of those transferable skills? So when we think about the career equation, let's think about some tips and tricks that help you unlock and download those transferable skills. So I think that what Erica and I would always say is when you're thinking about who am I when I'm at my best and what are those skills I bring, is to make sure that you're looking at your whole life to start with. So don't always just focus on me in work mode. So when you look at your whole life, both work and outside, a few things to think about are, what are the things that you are known for? What are the things that your colleagues, your family, your friends come to you for because you're the person that knows how to do that and is so good at it? What are those things? To really think about those sort of gifts, if you like, those strengths. And what is it that you love to do, that you want to do? What are the skills that you think, gosh, years ago, I used to spend a lot more time doing analysis of data. I don't do that so much anymore in my current work, and I miss that. So what are the things you love to do that you would like to bring back into your life? And to remember that, therefore, they're transferable skills. So when you're looking for opportunities, you can begin to navigate and spot those sort of ideas. And make sure you're thinking about outside of work as well. What do people come to you for? What is it that you've developed in your hobbies, your interests, your volunteering, special projects? What is it that you've developed in terms of skills outside of work as well? What things give you pleasure? Maybe you are somebody who loves to cook. Maybe you're someone who loves great discussions or to travel and visit new places. Think about, in those circumstances, what are the skills that you've developed about that? So if it's cooking, is it really getting underneath the great ingredients and understanding why those ingredients come together, what makes the perfect bake? What are the things that you're doing that give you pleasure, and what are the skills you've developed as a result of those? Also remember to ask people that you trust for their input on your strengths and skills, your talents that they come to you for. People will be really honest about why you're their go-to person. So if you think about, for example, your family, if you love planning the trips or vacations, think about what are the skills that sit underneath that in terms of a successful trip. What is it that you're doing that makes it so successful? The sort of specialist bit that you bring to that kind of research. What comes up for you, Erica, when you think about breaking down into skills in terms of how do I identify them?
I mean, I think if I take the example of going on a trip, because I think that's a really good example, lots of people have done it and we bring different things to the table. I love bargain hunting. I love research. I like narrowing things down and making decisions. I like planning itineraries, and I'm really good at packing. I really read my Brownie Guide handbook as a kid and know exactly what needs to be packed and in what way, and being really efficient about it being just even in the right bag so you can find it for the right time. Time management, remembering things, making sure that we've got everything that we need, setting up checklists, but also more intuitive things like building relationships with strangers, following my hunches and intuitions, talking to other people who've been to those places and getting those tips and ideas, sharing with locals the kind of things that we'd like to experience, gathering their insight. I think that gives me a lot of joy as well. There's the kind of efficiency side, there's sort of making the thing happen as a project, but then there's also the experience of finding pleasurable things to do and making connections with people while you're on the way.
Well, I'm really glad about that, Erica, because now I know that you're the person I come to because when I want help with packing, because I hate it. I am not good at packing or deciding what I'm going to take. That's definitely not my transferable skills. So it's lovely to just that idea of planning a trip about the things that you would bring to it, your transferable skills, and what I would bring to it, which is why this sort of idea of unpicking a topic and then really understanding what your specialist skills are is so important. But there's also another idea in terms of how else can I think about my transferable skills? And I touched on this a little bit just a moment ago. But to take some time to revisit your previous career history too, your sort of story so far is really, really important because it will help you explore the kinds of successes you've had and then think about what was the skills that I was using or developing at that point. For example, if you were thinking about excellent customer service as a transferable skill, and when you look back at your career history, you think about at what points have I been doing that? We start to think about what sits underneath that level. So is it about listening to customers, sharing ideas with them, giving some great feedback to customers, being really consistent with them, remembering people's names and their needs, the real personal touch. So we get underneath your sort of uniqueness and how you develop those customer service skills. And that can be helped by looking back over your story so far and remembering those kind of highs, if you like, of where you've developed some of those things. Also, you might have done some things in the past as well that you've forgotten about that you could tap back into because they'll help remind you and pinpoint transferable skills. And so things like psychometric tests or strength finders, those kind of things where you've perhaps even got a report or a printout from something you've done before will help you, as I say, pinpoint transferable skills so you can recognize them in yourself and then start to tell stories about them and how you use them. And also, don't forget to look at similar roles to you or roles that you would love to do. Look at those profiles and think about 5 or 10 transferable skills in that profile that you feel that you possess and how you apply them and what you bring to them. That will really help you gather this library together of transferable skills.
If you've been diligent and you have been pausing this podcast at each of those fantastic tips that Zoe's got you, I bet that you've got at least 10 transferable skills there. And now you've got this lovely juicy list, we just need to narrow it down. Because actually, we want to hone in on what is your sweet spot, what is it you really can't live without in terms of the work that you're doing, so that you can articulate this to others, share your value, and then set your goals and your work design around amplifying your ability to master that skill in a variety of different environments, contexts, depths, whatever's important to you. And that's where the career equation really helps, because it's so simple to uncover for yourself the core agenda items that come from the career equation framework. And the career equation says spending more time in your sweet spot, doing the things that you do best, is going to give you exceptional satisfaction and success. But some of the things on your transferable skills list, you just might not want to use at work, or you might not want to monetize, or you might feel a kind of overdone. Doing some discernment now about reducing down to the kind of top 3 most important skills that you really want to focus your energy on, that you really want to be known for, is how you start to play to your true strengths and just focus in on where you can be truly exceptional and excellent. So I want you to take the list of your transferable skills, and then I want you to do what we call a brutal edit. I want you to cut it down, remove anything that you don't want to make money from, remove anything that you feel you've been pigeonholed or you've overdone skills, and remove anything that you think, I would hate to have to do that for most of my time. And then see what's left. And what is left is your marketable transferable skills. So from my own perspective, speaking, listening, questioning, being curious, discovering things, those are my fundamentals. I will never get tired of doing those. And if those things are shut down, then I just can't engage. That's not work that I'm going to be able to do. So what is that for you? What are the things you cannot live without that really shine for you? And if you're a manager, a mentor, a coach listening to this, you can really help with this process of supporting your talent to identify the key skills that are both valuable for their continued progress within the industry, the role, the team that they're in, as well as those that are useful for your wider business at this time. So helping them to work out what they've got going on that is both extremely valuable to them and to where they want to travel, and also to the business, is a huge gift that you give them in moving forward and navigating their career. But it's also really helpful to enable you to develop a bespoke development plan that they're excited about, that they're engaged around, that feels relevant and personalized to them. And when we develop these kinds of plans, people are going to want to stay and see them through. So from kind of talent retention and an internal mobility, as well as performance, joy, and employee engagement perspectives, it's really a win-win. And remember that a development plan doesn't have to include training that's always formal. Often formal relates to hard skills as well, but it can be shadowing, it can be apprenticing, it can be watching some videos, reading some books, it can be getting some practice, it can be deliberately giving in the moment feedback on the back of something. Someone wants to improve their presentation skills, give them opportunities to do presentations. And every time they do, tell them what was great, tell them what you'd like to see even better next time. You can do 5 minutes of that, learning on the job. We all know that so much learning happens on the job. But also, don't be afraid to make judicious investments where it's clear that there's a win-win payoff. This person really wants to develop their skills in social media marketing and influencing. You need someone on the team who knows what they're doing around that. That's a sensible investment and a win-win. What are our final tips and takeaways, Zoe, in terms of being able to sell these skills, and final thoughts?
I think for an individual, a couple of things to remember around transferable skills once you've identified those marketable ones, the one you want to be playing to, is to think about a framework that we recommend to help you tell stories about your transferable skills. And that's called STAR. So a STAR story framework, which relates to situation, task, action, and result. These will really help you to evidence a transferable skill in a kind of short, concise, punchy story sort of way, and will help you be memorable. So it's about being specific and memorable and grabbing the attention, if you like, of your listener. So that situation part is the headline grabber. So when you think about when you're scrolling through your phone, sometimes you'll see a phrase or something that grabs your attention, like a headline in a newspaper. That's the situation part of a STAR story. Then the task is about summarizing what needed to happen. What was it that you were about to do that's evidencing using this transferable skill? The action is about what did you specifically do? What did you lead? What did you develop? What did you initiate? So you're getting into the action of the story. And the result is about the outcome, the growth, the reflections, the output of what it was that you did. And that using that STAR story framework will help you evidence the transferable skill that you're demonstrating. So that's one thing you can do. Also, something to bear in mind when it comes to your CV is make sure you're updating it and adapting it, and that you're not getting caught out by those bots or those systems that are automatically screening CVs. So things like, from our experience, we understand that you want to avoid using boxes and charts, because things that are set within those often gets overlooked and is not screened by the bots that are sort of looking through these CVs. Make sure you're really concise. We always recommend that your CV is no more than 2 pages. Make sure you're only putting in there relevant information only that's applicable to the opportunity that you're trying to win. Cut out any waffle, lead with bullets. We always suggest you lead with action verbs and provide tangible metrics. So when we talk about action verbs, so it's initiated, implemented, led, those action gets straight to the point rather than having waffle at the beginning of your bullet points. And use your personal summary. Remember, it's your shop window. So this is what's going to attract people's attention. When they read your personal summary, you want them to continue on to read more on your CV. So think about what will make them read on and want to know more. You think about what you want to put in that window to entice them in, just as if if we look in Harrods window at Christmas, they put beautiful displays in there. We'll go into the shop because of what's enticing us into the shop in that window. Same as your personal summary for your CV. What's going to entice them in to read more? Capture just enough to entice them, but not overwhelm them or lose their interest, if you like.
Here's 3 top tips for managers and mentors. Look, first of all, you're going to be completely astonished if you start a conversation around what skills people have that you didn't know about. So check in about what they haven't mentioned to you. Consider running a sort of skills harvesting session where everyone can use the structures and the questions that we've given you to unpick what their transferable skills are and their latent capacity for things they want to be doing, but you didn't know about. And second, be generous in helping your people to notice when they're doing something exceptional in the field of transferable skills and give them that positive affirmation, whether it's a little bit of specific feedback, whether it's telling them what you noticed, whether it's naming something that they do day in, day out that they didn't know had value. All of those things are incredible ways to boost a person's confidence and nurture their capacity for excellence. And lastly, get excited. How can you grow these talents and skills in your business while they are on the job? Because the more that you know about what they value, the more you can co-design a development activity, a development plan, a long-term future within the business based on those insights. So keep notes about what's great about them and share them on a regular basis. Give feedback that feels affirming. Stay curious about what would they like to do more of, what comes naturally to them. And then just really remember to keep building that confidence and listening to really check your understanding. So, final thoughts, Zoe, about key tips and tools.
I would just say what's really important when it comes to identifying transferable skills is you need to just take a little bit of time to reflect on your story so far and what skills you developed over that period. Get used to telling stories about those skills. So use the STAR story framework, because that will help you be concise and punchy and grab attention.
And I would say from the expert point of view or the person nurturing talent, really stay alongside people in getting curious about what comes naturally to them and uncovering that, but also being interested in what they did previously that they might have dropped or forgotten that actually they would love to bring back into their world of work, and be proactive about where and how can we develop opportunities for this person to enhance that skill set, because the more that they feel that they are growing and have momentum, the happier and more productive they're going to be. And if you're looking to retain and engage them, the more focused they're going to be on achieving their goals in-house within your organization. So do drop us a line, pod@thecareerequation.com. Let us know how these tools have landed, how they're impacting you personally. And if you are a fan of these tools and think you might want to learn more, we have a career coaching training coming up. Our ICF accredited career equation program for coaches is going live in May. So do check out the website, thecareerequation.com, to find out more about that. We have just a few spaces left, and you'll get to work with us for 3 whole days to hone your practice to take your coaching clients from confusion and overwhelm to absolute career clarity in just 6 really structured, done for you sessions. Really hope that we get to meet some of you there. And until then, enjoy solving your career conundrums.
Take care. Goodbye.
Bye.
Thank you for tuning in to today's episode of the Career Equation podcast.
Stay connected with us on socials for more career insights, behind-the-scenes moments, and updates on upcoming episodes. And if you'd like to work with us, visit the Career Equation website or click the links in the show notes.
Remember, the Career Equation isn't just a podcast, it's a journey towards unlocking your full potential, enjoying your life, and doing remarkable stuff.
Until next time, keep solving those career equations and pursuing your path to success.
And don't forget to share your thoughts and feedback with us. Your input shapes the future of our show.
Until next time, keep solving those career equations and pursuing your path to success. This is Erica Sosna
And Zoe Schofield. Signing off.